Maine is one of nearly 24 states suing the Trump administration over its termination of billions of dollars in public health grants.
Attorney General Aaron Frey is among the coalition of 23 attorneys general and the District of Columbia filing the lawsuit. They argue the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and its Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., abruptly and illegally ended nearly $11 billion in grants to the states.
The Maine AG's office says the state stands to lose $91 million, and the cancellations could lead to the end of various public health programs and initiatives, including rural health services. Frey says Congress approved and appropriated this grant money in COVID-19 related legislation, with some targeting mental health and substance abuse and addiction services. He says HHS pulled the funding last month, claiming the pandemic is over and the grants are no longer necessary.
States are asking courts to invalidate the grant terminations and block them from being reinstated.